Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Rob Staten here. If Robbie can join us, he will jump into the room when he is available. But it's the end of the combine. The offensive linemen have gone through their drills. Really pleased that they managed to rush through that in super quick time because it's a long 4 days covering the combine, watching everything, and they zipped through those offensive line drills today. And we've got some interesting information. So I'm going to give you my opinions on what I saw in the drills, give you some thoughts on who might be targets for the Seahawks, and just run through that. Get your super chats in. I will stay on the stream while ever you get your questions in, your super chats, and then we'll see how long this one goes for. So before we start, I think it's important to establish what I was kind of like looking for today in terms of the measurables and the testing numbers for offensive linemen working in the zone blocking scheme. And this was the tweet that I put out earlier. As you can see there, they're the numbers. So a 40-yard dash between 5 seconds and 5.1, that is the average testing number for the best zone blocking interior offensive lineman in the NFL currently. 10-yard split, 1.7 to 1.76 is kind of the ballpark figure. You know, obviously anything better than these times, even better. Short shuttle, a 4.5, 4.55, that kind of range, that's what you're looking for. And a vertical jump between 30 and 32 inches. They're the averages. It doesn't mean that somebody can't excel in this scheme outside of these numbers. Doesn't mean that if you go way beyond this and excel in all of these tests that you're going to be the next great offensive lineman. So that's what I was looking for, just to sort of lay out there. We have not got any of the agility testing numbers yet. I don't know how many of the offensive linemen will actually do a short shuttle or a 3-cone. There's no data on the Combine IQ website, which is where I'm getting all my information from. But that is basically, they're the list of numbers that I've been sort of basing my thoughts on there. So of the group, and this is for interior offensive linemen only, I'm not including the offensive tackles. For example, of this list of players, I could have included Logan Brown. I could have included Aronte Ursery. You know, they're pure tackles. They're not going to play guard in a zone blocking scheme, so I have not included them in this list. But the players, based on their testing, who fit so far before the agility testing is done, the kind of framework that we're looking for here for the best, that match up with the best offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman in the zone scheme, these were the names. Joshua Gray, who is only 299 pounds. I think he's just a little bit too upright, and I don't think he packs enough of a punch to think he could be a starting interior offensive lineman. But in terms of the testing, he ran a 1.70 10-yard split and he jumped to 31-inch vertical. Jared Wilson, one of the big winners on the day. Jared Wilson was highly athletic, very, very interesting, has got the testing numbers to definitely go somewhere from probably Seattle's pick at 50 through to around the 75 range. We always tend to overrate and overestimate the range where centers are going to go. It happens every single year. People will now be putting Jared Wilson probably in the top 50. The chances are he will not go in the top 50 because centers don't go very early. But I think it's safe, like I said, 50 to 75 kind of range for his testing skills there. And with it being a weak center class, he might get a little bit of a bump. So Jared Wilson definitely on the list. Josh Connolly. I do not think Josh Connolly looks like a left tackle or a right tackle for that matter. When he was doing the drills today, now whether he can play guard or not, I don't know, but he has got a good zone blocking grade. He ran a 1.71, same as Jared Wilson in the 10-yard split. Very explosive, 34.5-inch vertical, but it just doesn't have the size and the length and the look of a left tackle. I think he probably will have to kick inside to guard. Tate Ratledge, one of the huge winners of the day. Tate Ratledge was superb. A 1.72 10-yard split, an excellent 40-yard dash, a 32-inch vertical, and a 9.5 broad jump. Just an incredible day from him. And on the on-field drills, and I'll get onto my notes on that in a second, he was a bit sluggish to start and then really came into his own. And by the end of the session was just looking superb. Clay Webb, 1.72 10-yard split, 31-inch vertical. Very good from him. Armand Membu, again, one of the big winners, a 1.74 10-yard split, 34-inch vertical. He will go either to the Bears at 10, the Niners at 11. It's probably looking at those two. 10 or 11, I would suggest. I think it's hard to imagine him going much further than that. If he does, Miami at 13, maybe. I can't see him dropping much further than that. And I'd be surprised if he got past Arizona, even if he fell that far, and Cincinnati to get to Seattle. He's not going to go in, like somebody said, is he going to go in like 4th overall? He's not going to go 4th overall to the Patriots, but it seems realistic to think anywhere from 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 16 is kind of where Armand Membu is going to go. Eli Cox, someone I've not studied, pure center, a 1.75 10-yard split, 32.5-inch vertical, somebody that I will have a look at. And then Will Campbell, a 1.76 10-yard split and a 32-inch vertical. So they're the players that based on the testing have got into that kind of range that we're talking about here. There are obviously players who have not done the testing. For example, I've got the list of people who didn't run a 40 here who do not even come into contention for this because they didn't run a 10-yard split. But the likes of Dylan Fairchild, Donovan Jackson, Luke Kandra, Jake Majors, Marcus Bowe, Jonah Monheim, Jack Nelson, Josh Simmons, and Gray Zabel. They did not run. So you can't really include them in that and just say, well, I'm going to assume that they would run very, very well. But as it happens, I would fully expect Dylan Fairchild, Donovan Jackson, definitely Gray Zabel to get into sort of that testing range, because Gray Zabel I thought looked superb today. My estimate at the minute, based on the explosive testing stuff that we do, is that we're going to have 15 confirmed explosive testers on the offensive line by the end of the combine, with the potential to add more. So that's an explosive offensive line class. That's a decent chunk of explosive offensive linemen. It's a decent list of quality zone blockers. Basically, to cut a long story short, is the Seahawks are going to have opportunities here to draft defensive linemen. This is whether they do it at 18, whether they do it after trading down, whether they do it at 50, whether they do it later on. They're going to have a real opportunity to add good quality offensive linemen. Now, there was an article on ESPN between Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano earlier, and there were a couple of interesting things in that. First of all, the Falcons apparently, according to that report, are not expecting to be able to re-sign Drew Dolman. It's going to be too expensive. They're talking about him getting Creed Humphrey money, which, based on the fact the Cowboys are now franchise tagging Osa Odighizuwa, makes me think that the market is ready to go crazy again. It's going to be reset at a number of different positions, and I would imagine that that's going to be the case with Drew Dolman. So that talk of him potentially being a $20 million a year player, there may be something in that. That's what Greg Rosenthal said he was hearing in the week at the Combine, and there may be something in that, and maybe he gets priced out. But the article went on to say that the Bears were looking at Dolman. They were looking at Aaron Banks, former San Francisco left guard. They were looking at Will Freeze, the Indianapolis Colts right guard. And then it said at the end of the article, it listed 3 other teams, the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks are lurking, it said. Now, I've wrote about this earlier. I hope they're doing more than lurking, the Seahawks. I hope they're in this business, because I think the best thing to do would be to sign some offensive linemen in free agency and just open yourself up to best player available at 18, because there's some interesting players who could fall who are not offensive linemen, and it would be good not to feel like you've got to force anything there. Now, your best player available might be an offensive lineman, but it will be good not to have to force anything at the 18th overall pick to go and get somebody. But whether you are drafting somebody at that 18, whether you are drafting someone at 50 or whatever, there are definite options there. And I think this has changed things a little bit. I think there are certain players that are going to move up, certain players are going to move down off the back of this. So I'm going to run through my notes. And as I'm sort of talking through the notes I've made from the drills, it was a difficult second session because a lot of the drills were taken up by chit-chats, Ian Rappaport, and commercial breaks. But I'm going to try and give you some thoughts as this moves along. We have got a super chat from Steve. Steve, thank you for sending this in. Have you given any thought to developing a zone blocking system metric similar to TEF using the testing metrics you identified? I have, Steve. I'm far from a mathematician. I am trying to get my head around how you would do it. The thing about TEF was that we had very defined numbers, and it was described as this is the ideal. You know, it's a 31.5 inch vertical, it's a 9-1 broad, it's whatever it was, 27 reps on the bench press. And because you had very specific ideals there, it was easy to make a formula. But with this, we're talking about ranges, and there's nothing laid out as we specifically look for this. And with Tom Cable and TEF, it was, this is what we want, this is what we're looking for. Nobody has said that for the Seahawks, that this is what they're looking for. So I'm just assuming that an average of the best possible zone blocking guards and centers is a good benchmark. So I am thinking about it. Appreciate the question. I haven't come up with anything yet, but I'm going to carry on working that. And if anybody's got any ideas, send me an email and we might be able to do something fun with this. So thank you for the super chat. Keep them coming. Robbie's here. Robbie, how are you, man?
Great. How are you?
Very good. I'm tired. Like, I've been at work today. I had about 3 hours sleep, went to work, 6 hours of work, came back straight into the combine, Robbie. And I was just saying, I'm really relieved that they zipped through the offensive line drills today. They didn't hang about.
Yeah.
There was a swift. I think the NFL was ready to go home as well. I think they were ready to get off and get done with this. So they zipped through them. I think Robbie, from as a fan of a team that needs to improve its offensive line, I thought that was a reasonably positive day today, because there was plenty of offensive linemen on show, weren't there, that were interesting for Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, good day overall for sure. It's interesting that you bring up that kind of just the combine in general, though. Just like, I wonder if there's going to be some changes. They zipped through the linemen. I feel like even yesterday the quarterbacks dragged along, and as you were stating yesterday, when the wide receivers were running, they weren't like really identifying, who was running the route, and unless you kind of knew the number and the player. Just seems like half people just dropping out of the 40 now. I'm interested to see if they make some changes to the combine to kind of help the players, and then, kind of just help just overall general.
Do you know what I wonder a bit with that, though, is part of me does wonder a little bit whether the TV numbers, if they're really good, and that they might just think, well, what the hell? I mean, if the TV numbers are good, and if the teams say, look, the on-field drills are not as important anymore, but we get all of the medical stuff, we get all of our interviews done, we get to go and have a little chit chat ahead of free agency and talk to a bunch of agents and get everybody together, that we're getting what we need out of this, and the on-field stuff is not important. And the NFL just thinks, well, we can just basically hive all of the sporting interest over 4 days by putting this event on. We don't really need to adjust and adapt. I'd love to see them modernize it, though. It's just the same drills as ever. The thought that the offensive lineman will come back tomorrow, Robbie, rather than getting on the first plane tonight. I mean, it looks as if nearly everybody's gone home as it is. How many of the teams are actually there? They spent the first 3 days showing clips of the GMs and the coaches in the stands. They didn't show any of that today. It's almost as if none of them are there.
Yeah, it's like all scouts at this point.
Yeah, just the scouts and the positional coaches. Even I can't remember his name. Even the grizzled old Philadelphia Eagles offensive line coach couldn't be bothered to do his favorite drill this year. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it just feels as if everyone's gone home. So are the linemen going to stay around till tomorrow to do a bench press, or are they just all going to shoot off? Like, and why are we even doing a bench press? Why are we not doing the Powerball toss like they do at Spark? Like, for me, it's just crazy why they don't do the Powerball. It's a better test of power. Bench press is stamina. You could see. Well, I was just watching it yesterday and watching I think it was the linebackers or whatever, or whoever it was. It might be the running backs doing the bench press, and they're just up, down, up, down, up, down. I think this isn't a test of power. This is if you weigh as much as the bar, it's basically like doing push-ups. It's not. The test of power would be like a 1 rep max or something. Like, and that's your strength test.
Yeah.
If you and especially for the offensive lineman, Robbie, the bar and the weights are going to be 225, and you might weigh, like, our man member weighs like 335 pounds. Like, it's not even a push up for him. Like, it's just how much time do you spend? Like, it's sorry to go on about this. It is a bugbear of mine. If you start off, if you never do press ups and then you start doing press ups, push ups, whatever you call them over there. you start doing it, you'll start off really badly. You might get a couple out, something. By the end of the week, you'll be able to get 10. By the end of the month, you'll be able to get 25. It's just practice. And that's the thing with the bench press. For these guys who are massive, it's just practice and then stamina. Like, let's see a proper test of power. Let's sort of see some better routes. Let's see some better drills. Let's see some better testing opportunities. Like, there has to be a way of measuring arm strength better than just throwing it as far as you can. And also, Robbie, wouldn't it be great to see them just how far can you throw it and how fast can you throw it versus having a receiver running underneath it? Because if you want to arm it out and then you hopelessly overthrow a receiver, then it looks bad. But if you just say, and now we're just going to see how far they can throw it, like it just
right.
So I don't know. I think they should modernize it. I think they should change it. I think there has to be some incentives to get people to work out. Here's one thing, Robbie, I'd love to see them do before we get back to offensive linemen. If you are not working out, you don't get to be on the field during the workouts. I cannot handle things like we had yesterday where Shedeur Sanders was basically just arsing about on the field for the whole of the day. They interviewed him. They actually went away from the throws for the second group of quarterbacks to interview Shedeur Sanders. And the screen was split for half of that, Robbie, so you couldn't even see the throws. And then they just took the throws off and had Stacey Dales interviewing Shedeur and one of his receivers. And it's like, what is this? He's not.
Yeah.
If the guy can't even be bothered to throw a football for 15 minutes, why are we embracing him down there? Why are we listening to him? Why are we telling him how amazing he is? Get the football and throw the darn thing, or go away. Like, is it an unfair thing to say?
No, I totally agree. I mean, they kept showing him on the big screen at the stadium too. Him and Cam Ward. Yeah.
I think he's hilarious, by the way. That he thinks him and his dad think he's so good that I don't need to. I'll go to the shrine for a day and just be there and not throw, and then I'll go to the combine and not do anything. No, you're going to be in for a shock power when you last the 45th pick in the draft. He really is. He's going to be in for a big old shock.
You're one of the only people who is predicting he's going to fall that I can see. I'll be shocked if that really happens.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go in the first round.
That's crazy to me. It's crazy.
I think he's going to go in the first round because I would encourage everybody to go and listen to the Tyler Shough interview with Todd McShay. It's 25 minutes. It's fantastic. And Tyler Shough did everything yesterday and did it well. He threw well. He ran well. He jumped well. He speaks well. He is mature. He is a leader. I loved everything about that interview with Todd McShay. And then you've got Shedeur there with his spangly necklace on, just mucking about with his headphones, just chatting to people and high-fiving them. And people interviewed him, telling him he was amazing. Like, he's not amazing. He's a fair quarterback. He's just a run-of-the-mill, fairly decent quarterback. And I think teams are going to look at Shough and go, I prefer him. I prefer Jackson Dart. I prefer Quinn Ewers. Some of them will prefer Will Howard, who just won a national championship and won the Big 12. What did Shedeur ever win? Anyway, we've kind of gone off track a lot here. So
let's go back to offensive linemen.
Let's go back to offensive linemen.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go through some of my notes, Robbie, and tell you what I think about certain players, and then you just interrupt me when you want to jump in. Just go, Rob, I think this, and then I'll shut up talking. Nick has said, Rob trust me, I am not a big drinker, Nick. Definitely not a big drink. I have not had a couple of pints. This is just energy or lack of after the combine.
Pure fatigue and running off
fatigue and frustrating combine broadcast. Right, Kelvin Banks Jr. Is the first one. I talked about him earlier in the week, Robbie. I don't think he's a zone blocking guard, and I don't think that today did anything to dispel that. I think he looks like a right tackle. They compared him to Brian Bulaga physically, the NFL Network, and as soon as they put that up on the screen, I was like, yeah, that's who he is. He is Brian Bulaga. He's a right tackle at the next level. Could be a decent one. Could be a solid right tackle at the next level, but not somebody that I think the Seahawks should be taking 18th overall. I thought for the most part, he looked a little bit stiff. He lacked dynamic movements and change of direction. I thought he moved reasonably well in his deep pull. His short pull was well executed, got into position well, stayed close to his teammate. That was good. I thought his pass rush drop could have used more depth on the retreat. I didn't think for someone who's played a lot of left tackle in the SEC and the Big 12, that was particularly good, Robbie. But for me, I thought right tackle, probably going to go 25 to 35 in the draft. That was my thought with Kelvin Banks. Have you seen anything else? Because when I've said that I said that in the comments on the blog and people were disagreeing with me, but I think that's what he is. I don't think he's as good as some people have been suggesting.
I mean, we talked about him a little bit yesterday. I just think I still really like him. I know you kind of brought up some good points about him not being, him talking about his preferred scheme, and not wanting to not really zone blocking scheme guy. I like the idea of having some protection behind Abe Lucas and or even moving Abe Lucas to right guard to kind of prolong his career if that's the case. I just want to see Abe playing because he's a hell of a player. He is someone that you want to keep on the team, and if we can prolong his career longer, and if moving McGuard does that, I'm down for it. I again, yeah, 18 maybe a little too rich, so maybe we trade down a couple spots to do it if the opportunity is there. But I don't hate the idea of taking a right tackle, honestly. I really don't. If it means that we can move Abe inside, or if he can play guard as well, because I think we need both guard positions.
I would rather not move Abe, given that he came back and played tackle. And I think for me, Abe was always the perfect right tackle build. But I'm interested to see what happens with Kelvin Banks. Like, I can imagine, Robbie, them looking at him, and I wasn't a big Charles Cross fan, and they took Charles Cross in the top 10. So what I think doesn't necessarily correlate what the Seahawks think. So he could be drafted. They could put him at left guard. I just have a hard time seeing it. And he had a real weird testing thing as well, because he ran a 1.79 10-yard split, which is not very good for a left tackle of his quality. He had a 32-inch vertical, which is good. An 8.8 broad is not very good though. And then hey Robbie, we've got some short shuttle numbers. Got some short shuttle numbers have come out. So Kelvin Banks ran a short shuttle. Fair play. I've completely changed my mind on him now because he actually bothered to run a short shuttle. It's not a bad short shuttle. He ran a 4.66. It's not great. Okay. It's not great, but it's a 4.66. Tyler Booker ran a short shuttle. Listen, I'm just going to say this. Fair play to Tyler Booker. He did everything, and he didn't do everything well. Do you know how many prospects have hidden all for the last 4 days? So even some of the guys you'd expect to run well have hidden from everything. And Tyler Booker ran a bloody short shuttle today and did everything. He ran a 40, a terrible 40. He's had a terrible broad jump. His short shuttle is a 4.84, which is exactly what you'd expect for a guy who's 325 pounds. He's not tested well at all, but he's done everything. Fair play to him. Logan Brown, really good short shuttle of a 4.51. Connor Colby, a 4.63. Not amazing, but it's okay. Hayden Connor with a 4.88. Eli Cox, I thought was interesting. Talk about him in a bit. A 4.58. Decent from him. Center that we should be keeping an eye on later in the draft. Explosive testing. Good 10-yard split. Good 40. And now good short shuttle.
Did Gray Zabel run?
He's not done any running because of an injury. He just did the drills. I mean, that's a bit weird though that he ran all around the field and didn't do a 40. These are all the first group, by the way, so that we won't.
He had an incredible vert, by the way.
He did. Oh, don't worry. We're going to talk about Gray Zabel, Robbie. Yeah. Do not worry about that. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon ran a 4.91 short shuttle, which is rubbish. His testing was dreadful across the board. Aronte Ursary ran a short shuttle. Fair play to him. Another person who really probably shouldn't have done 4.82, but he's done it. Miles Hinton a 4.96. Joe Huber a 4.78. Drew Kendall a 4.51. That's good. Marcus Bowe a 4.67. Oh, we have got the second group. Wyatt Millam, fair play to him for doing one. 4.69. Caleb Rogers a 4.49. It's really good. He was explosive as well. It's good time for him. Jonas Savanea a 4.66. It's not terrible. Ozzy Trapillo a 4.70. Clay Webber 4.90. Man, what was he? Has he had a couple of pints? That is really bad. That is really bad for Class. Really disappointing. That is really... What happened there? He must have fallen over or something. That is or maybe it's a typo. A 4.90. John Williams a 4.72. Jared Wilson a 4.56. Really good. And Gray Zabel didn't do one. But that Jared Wilson one's really good. We'll have to come back to those. But that is some reasonable times there. So there you go. They're the short shuttle numbers. No 3-cone yet, but hopefully they'll do some of those as well. But the short shuttle is the most important thing for them. Anyway, Kelvin Banks for me, I'm out on him at 18 personally. Tyler Booker, big fan of Tyler Booker on tape. The best guard tape since Quentin Nelson for me, Robbie. When I saw him run that 40 and that 1-9, whatever, 10-yard split, I thought, this is not going to be a good on-field session for Tyler Booker. He is going to struggle. I was stunned by how mobile he looked, having run such an appalling 40 and a bad broad jump. I could not believe how mobile he was. I thought he moved a lot more freely than Kelvin Banks. His deep pull mobility was more impressive than most in the first group. His short pull was very impressive. He transitioned well, broke to the next level. Pass rush drop was not as comfortable, but it's a tackle drill. He's not going to be a tackle. He's not going to be moving backwards. This is a player who's a forward-moving player. He's not ever going to be dropping and setting. I thought he had a good, powerful punch in his pass rush drop, though. Footwork, not ideal on that, but he's 325 pounds. His punch was by far the strongest. His feet in the mirror were so light and sharp for his size. I thought the screen drill, it was really well executed. Fast acceleration out of his break. I just came away from that, Robbie, and a few people have gone, you like him, so that's not how I operate. Like, there are players that I don't like that I'm going to praise in a bit. If I was still about confirming priors or whatever people call it, or whatever, I would do that about the other players. I thought Tyler Booker, given how crap his testing was, I thought his on-field session was really, really good. Really good, Robbie. I don't know if you saw any of it. I thought I have no issue with taking this guy at 18 and trying him at zone with the way that he tested on the on-field drills. The guy can move. He can't test. How many times is he ever going to have to jump a broad jump ever again? And the whole point is, if that's about explosive power, is vertical, is broad no good? It's a test of explosive power. I dare anybody to watch Alabama and tell me that Tyler Booker does not have power. Like, he can move people. It's fine. Now, the agility stuff and the speed is an issue for zone. But I thought he showed on the field, strangely, Robbie, that sometimes the numbers can lead you down a path that you don't want to go down. And there are some guards and tackles even in the NFL who had long careers, haven't tested very well, Robbie. So what did you think of Tyler Booker?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt the same way. He struggled in a lot of areas, but it's really hard to judge offensive linemen off that. It's really when game tape comes in and you put that on and you just see, how do they maul people at the line? Are they are they moving well? During the game, when they don't have pads on and they're just like running around, they just look big and kind of goofy, right? I mean, they don't really look all impressive. I mean, even the ones who are impressive, they don't look like big defensive linemen who, when they're moving, they look good, right? They just look different. So it's hard to judge off that. I'm not, I do like some of the explosive stuff, like the, Gray Zable's jump, like, that's a great vert. And for me, that just tells me like he's got that explosive in his legs. But also, like, if he didn't have a super great vert, I wouldn't say, oh, he's definitely not explosive. I don't think that's the measure of what makes it an explosive player. But it does, obviously those things help, and that's why they do it. But that's where some of the game tape comes in.
I'd have no issue taking Booker at 18. I think there's a danger of overthinking stuff like that. And if you want an angry, aggressive, ready to play guard who is going to help set the tone up front, who's going to be a culture setter, who is going to maul people, and I think can show today that if you needed to move around a bit, he can do it. I think it would be a crying shame to pass up on a player like that because he's not the ideal prototype for zone. I think you can get him. I think this guy can play in any system. And the thing is people say he's better in gap. His zone grade was better than gap. He just graded badly in both last season because Alabama's line was a joke. He was playing with four jokers last season. For Alabama, their line was rubbish last year, and it affected everybody. So I'm not holding that against him. I think he at 18 is. I think he should be on the table. And if the bad testing numbers, Robbie, send him to 18, I am not I could not give a flying you know what. I really couldn't. I would take him. Anyway, the three people have been telling me the 3 cones are in. I'm not going to run through them all because everybody who did well in the short shuttle did well in the 3 cone. But I want to say this, Robbie. Someone who didn't do a short shuttle was Tate Ratledge. Now he's just run a 7.38 short shuttle. I think that's the best one. He earlier had a 4.9740, a 1.72 10-yard split, a 32-inch vertical, a 9.5 broad at 308 pounds. He's got huge hands, 10.5 inches. He lacks length. It's the only thing he hasn't got. And he's very tall. So he's a bit of a T-Rex, 6'6.5". I will come back to him because he's in the second group. That is an outstanding combine from Tate Ratledge. That is, I can see him playing for the Eagles and making a Pro Bowl next year. That's the kind of player we're talking about now, Robbie, with this testing profile. And you almost wonder a little bit, where does he go? Because with that profile, I could see him going in the top 40. And I'd love to see a player like that. You know, he's got a mean streak to him. He's extremely athletic. Sometimes you just look at a player and you go, I can imagine him being very good. Gray Zabel's one of them. Tate Ratledge is another. I think if you put those two at left guard and right guard, you'd have a freaking great O-line next year, Robbie, and beyond. But how do you get both of those players in Seattle?
Yeah, you got to trade DK probably.
Well, let's go over to Corbin Smith for the latest on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you see what I mean? It's like, this is the thing. Like, do you know how many times have we kind of sat here over the years? Maybe not me and you directly, but how many times over the years on the blog have we said, this guy looks really good? You know, it just seems obvious. And with Zabel and Ratledge, it seems obvious.
Yeah.
They both grade well in zone. They both move very well. They've both got a mean streak. They've both got facial hair and or haircuts that scream like classic offensive linemen. Like, you could imagine them doing a podcast in 15 years together. Like, you could. Like, I'm just saying, Robbie,
that's the measure right there for physical tests. Do they have the facial and long hair?
I'm just saying, like, what do you want? I want them to. There isn't anybody in free agency. There isn't anybody in free agency other than Drew Dolman who excites me more than having Gray Zabel at left guard and Tate Ratledge at right guard next year. There just isn't. I'd roll with the punches in that.
Yeah, I'm down for that for sure.
So would you take one at 18 and one at 50? Would you try and trade down 5 spots and take Zabel and then maybe trade up a bit to get Ratledge?
I honestly, to be honest with you, I would not be pissed if they double dipped right out the gate in the offensive line.
I can tell you what I'd be doing, Robbie. I'd be dancing around the living room
if
they did that. I don't care.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good players in this draft.
Yeah.
But if you come out with those 2 guys and you know, they're not gonna let you have a crap running game. They're not gonna let teams come to Lumen Field and push you around.
Yeah.
You stick a good center between the 2 of them. Here's an idea, Robbie. Let Drew Dolman go somewhere else.
I knew you were gonna say it. Go for it.
No, let Drew Dolman go somewhere else, okay? We'll bring in Ryan Kelly. Ryan Kelly, grizzled veteran, been around the block. He's that kind of dude like they are. You put him in the middle and he teaches them the ways of an offensive lineman. And then you have those 2 either side and you're going to work. I think that's an interior, Robbie, that can win you the NFC West next year. Kelly, Ratledge, and Zabel. I mean, it's probably not going to happen because whenever they come up with these like cool ideas, it never happens, Robbie. But tell me, if you polled Seattle fans right now, would you accept that as like the first 2 picks and then him as the center? And it would free you up some extra spending money in free agency to go and maybe sign some other players.
Yeah.
You know, there's some interesting other players at different positions. People are saying, what would you do with Christian Haynes? I mean, I'd say, sorry, Christian, you know, we need a backup right guard. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I'm not going to not take somebody because of Christian Haynes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting if you have the opportunity to do something like that. Somebody just said it, or you know, right before that, you got to take those guys early. And that's the thing. We can dream about getting one at 50 and one at 22, but chances of either of them happening slim. There could be a combination of other players though, but those are some good ones.
A couple of dudes, man. They
Yeah.
just look the part. Anyway, we'll come back to Tate Ralledge and Gray Zabel. Logan Brown, I thought was impressive with his dropping in his pass sets. He's a tackle. I think if someone had like a day 3 tackle to bring in some depth, there was just something with Logan Brown. He's a good zone blocker. Footwork in his redirect was strong. Looked extremely athletic on the second drill in that area. The depth of his drop was the best in the first group. I think he looks really interesting. His mirror drill was a bit safe, needed more speed, more lateral range, but I think Logan Brown is a player worth keeping an eye on. Will Campbell. Have you noticed, Robbie, that everyone was falling over all the way through the 4 days? Like the turf it was like an ice rink. I don't know what that is, whether it's the artificial grass or whether it's the pellets or whether it's the footwear that they were wearing. But every single group and position group slipped and sliding all over the field all day. And there's 1 or 2 offensive linemen. Will Campbell nearly really seriously injured himself today. He almost did the splits on one of the drills, on the first drill on the wave. So he fell over twice on that and he nearly hurt himself. I thought he looked very athletic on the long and deep pull. I thought it was a standout, like how easily he moved, how freely and how fast he moved. Very natural in space. The short pull was executed with ease. Really good mirror drill. Fast, great lateral movements. Looked in complete control. Had base. Moved so cleanly during the screen drill. Wonderful lateral speed and then explosive acceleration. Clearly the most athletic player in the first group was what I wrote. And that's not a surprise because he ran a sub 5:40. Now, he is not a player that I'm a big fan of. This is why I'm not having the people saying, I'm just saying Tyler Booker had a good on-field drill because I like him. I'm not a big Will Campbell guy, Robbie. I had him rated in round 2. I just think he's not aggressive enough, and I'm not a huge fan. But that was a good combine performance today. But can you play a guy at tackle with 32.5-inch arms, Rob?
And it's a good question. I mean, there's something to be said about that, but it's happened, right? I mean, we've seen guys go. What was the guy we liked a couple of years ago, and he had really short arms though, and I was like the downside, and he made it to like the 4th round, and now he's a starter, an everyday starter. His name's
Can't remember.
His name's slipping my mind, but I mean, you do see it, right? I mean, there's always those rare breeds of players who like just they have some limitation, but they just overcome them because they're just that good.
Yeah, I can't remember who that is either.
I can't either. Sorry, I should have.
But
I got it before I did it. But yeah,
it's just hard.
Happen.
It's just hard when you're taking a player, especially a tackle, that early.
Yeah.
And you say they've got short arms, they had a bad 2024 season, and they can't necessarily stick at tackle. The length's going to be a bit of an issue there. It's a hard sell, and I think you have to take him with the idea of he's going to start off inside, or just I've seen too many players like this. Like people saying, "Oh, Rayshawn Slater" and people like that. He's the art of the length and all that. Rayshawn Slater, as far as I remember, had 33-inch arms. Campbell's in that. Is in the other guy who was at Northwestern. The guy who was Peter Skoronsky, who started at left tackle, and a year later they replaced him with Latham at Tennessee. So I think you have to move him inside. Someone has asked, is Campbell a guard option at 18? Look, he's a good zone blocker and he's tested well today. So I would say yes, but I just thought I don't think he plays enough aggression. I think he's a little bit too passive. Like he looks aggressive, but he isn't. He's kind of like the opposite of Zabel and Ratledge in that regard. So I'd rather have them. I want someone who's going to smack you in the face, and I don't think Campbell is. I think he's a finesse player who just got bullied in the SEC last year. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but yes is the answer. He is a guard option at 18.
Do you remember when John Gruden got after Mel Kiper about Russell Wilson's height? And he was talking about, he's like, you're talking about this much on the height.
Classic clip.
Right. So like,
it's 13 freaking years ago, man.
Wow. I know, but you think about the same thing, right? With the arms, like you're talking 33 versus 32 and 5/8.
Yeah, like, it's a good point.
You're talking.
The point I was making about the time distance is I cannot believe it's 13 years. Hence that happened.
Right.
But look, you're absolutely right. But I suppose you could argue it's, the ideal length of a tackle is 35 inches. And that's like a 3-inch difference then. And it's if 33 is, well, it's only that you can get away with it. Like, how far do you keep going back until it becomes an issue? And there will be a point. And if you want, like, some of these, like the guy I was telling you about, Ezeraku at Boston College, got 34-inch arms and he's half the size. And that matters when you're just getting in there, and that extra inch or two can be the difference between who gets leverage on the pad, who gets your hands to the pads first. So it can be a bit of an issue. Josh Connolly moved very well during the wave. Athletic, mobile, light feet. Showed well in the deep pull and is clearly athletic. Short pull a notch below Campbell, but was still well executed. I thought he didn't look like a tackle today, Robbie. I thought in his build and his frame. I wrote here, on the pass rush drop, I didn't agree with Daniel Jeremiah praising his base. He looked stretched and his drop wasn't deep or strong. The coaches reminded the players to drop deeper after his reps specifically, which showed it wasn't an executed drill properly. I thought his mirror was good. Very good, actually. And he produced the best lateral movement side to side. Daniel Jeremiah announced he's going in the first round after his screen drill, and I would not be so sure about that, Robbie. I don't know where you play him, because on tape, I'm not sure that he's cut out for guard, and I'm not sure he's got the frame for tackle. I think he's a bit of a tweener. I like the way he plays, but I think he's a tweener, Robbie. Josh Connolly. Not huge on him. Very quickly, because I've just seen what the time is. It's we're 42 minutes in and not even got through the first group. Eli Cox, the Kentucky center, impressive. Stayed low in position, good lateral movements, looked in control, received praise for the way that he moved quickly through the deep pull and accelerated to finish. Feet were a little stiff in lateral movement. I need to go and watch him. I've not watched Eli Cox, so I think he is definitely a player that I am going to have a look at after this. Probably tonight, I'll probably go and have a look at some of his tape so I can stick him on the horizontal board, which I will update tomorrow. Dylan Fairchild also fell over during the wave. Then in the long pull, he ran into the coach and fell over again. Looked good running the deep pull. Lacked explosion in his short pull, I noted. His mirror drill was good for a pure guard. No highly explosive athletic burst like Campbell, but good enough. Joshua Gray, tall but light and moved well. Well-respected Oregon State. Benefits from being 299 pounds in these drills, but he moved very freely. Pass rush drop sets lacked any kind of violence, and his retreat was laboured. And then a couple more from the first session. Donovan Jackson was hurt all the way through this. He had a big strapping on his thigh after about 3/4 of the session. And he kind of gritted through it, but really hard to judge Donovan Jackson on anything we saw today. And then Jake Majors slipped during his wave, but his lateral movements were sharp and quick while retaining a good position. His base was fantastic throughout his drills. Looked good in the long pull. Majors committed to it more than others. Strong on the deep pull. His pass rush set and drop was excellent for a center. Excellent retreat and transition off the punch. Really like his base in the mirror. He's a prototype in terms of body positioning and control at center. How athletic is he, though, is something I noted after not running or jumping. Finish things off with a good screen drill. I thought Jake Majors looked really good today. He doesn't have a good zone blocking grade, which surprised me when I checked on that, Robbie. And I'm surprised he didn't do any of the testing because he looks athletic. I think he looks the part, but without the numbers, it's hard to sort of like really be all in on him. But he just looks like a starting center in the NFL. Did you see any of Jake Majors?
Yeah, and what's frustrating about like talking about the zone blocking scheme and like how you go away from it and like just certain guys fit certain schemes and like you got these players that could be really good fits if you just like change up your scheme a little bit. I mean, I get that this is what Clint Kubiak runs and that's just what he likes, but you got really good players who probably will pass by you, and you could 5-10 years down the line go, what the hell we let that guy pass, and this guy's a Pro Bowl player and he's dominating, and you're like, why did we let that guy pass? And all because of the scheme fit. And these players may actually fit a scheme fit, you just don't know until you get them in. I think if they're good football players, give them a shot to play wherever. I mean, they can learn the scheme.
Yeah, I think that's potentially true. I liked him. I thought it was really good. Right, second group. Jack Nelson, I thought looks a lot like David Edwards. I don't know if you remember him, Robbie. He's with the Bills now. He was with the Rams. I liked him when he was at Wisconsin, David Edwards, and I think he went in the third round. But he's forged a decent career. I thought Jack Nelson reminds me of him. Tall but grades well in zone. Didn't have sharp, sudden movements and lacked explosion in his release. The only notes I had for him. They didn't show a lot of these drills, though, because they were mucking about on the NFL Network. Tate Ratledge, back to him. Change of direction and lateral movements were not great to start with. His tall frame was a bit awkward in the wave. But then very easily out of his transition on his pulls. For a pure guard, his pass rush set and drop was really good. It was one of the better ones today. As the drills went on, he excelled. This was a great day for Ratledge, I put. Jonas Savonaya.
He had small arms, though, too, didn't he?
He's a T-Rex. Yeah.
That's yeah.
That's my
huge dude. He's like 300 and some pounds, and he had just tiny arms.
Yes. Tiny. Come on, we did the whole tiny hands.
Yeah,
Can you pick it?
Yeah.
Tiny arms. I would never go up to Tate Ratledge and go, tiny arms. Like, he'd probably kick the crap out of you.
Yeah.
But he looks like the kind who would do that. Which is why I want to draft him. I would say that to him right as he was going out onto Lumen Field. Go, by the way, Tate, Jared Verse just said, you got tiny arms. And I just sort of like, go to work. Yeah. Just go and kill him. In a football sense. Jonas Savonaya said that he showed excellent lateral mobility. This is what I said, not he said. Showed excellent lateral mobility and change of direction in the wave. Superb release and transitioning in the pull drills. Had a really good field workout. Back pedal was reasonable on his pass rush set and drop. Screen drill to finish was really well executed. He had a very good on-field session. The only thing with him is his tape is so passive. It's so passive. Like, you want to say, like, hammer someone, Jonah. And then he gets to the Senior Bowl. And if I was his agent, I'd have been in his ear. Jonah, go and start a fight with somebody. Just go and hit somebody. Just go and smack somebody after. Have one of those, those famous Senior Bowl scuffles where the helmets fly and everyone has to go in and separate them. And Jonah Savonaya didn't do that. He was passive at the Senior Bowl as well. And I don't want passive Robbie. It can be athletic and all that. When I look at him, he looks like he should have a mean streak, and he doesn't really have one. And that's why I want Tate Ratledge and Gray Zabel and stuff. Okay, final 1, 2, 3 players. Clay Webb needed to unlock his hips and play with a better base in the wave drill. He has a classic frame for an NFL center, and that's where I would try to develop him. Moved well on his deep pull. Does not look like a guard with his frame. Pass rush drops were too shallow, but he's a center, so it doesn't matter. His mirror drill was bitty. The coach had to correct his movements. He looked nimble during his screen drill.
And I worry about his coaching, And
then he ran a 4.90 in the short shuttle.
Yeah.
I might be able to run a 4.90 in the short shuttle, Robbie.
Yeah. He plays at a really small school, too. Some of those guys he's very careful of.
He did, but there's quite a backstory there. He went to Georgia initially.
Right.
So he was a 5-star recruit, I think. And then he ended up at Jacksonville State. And his tape's good. His tape is good. It's just that 4.90. I mean, you just wonder when they go to these smaller schools. You wonder if he's not spent any time practicing that, and he's just going to give it a go. And fair play to him if he has, and he's just struggled with the drill and maybe didn't understand it. Whereas the players who go to the top schools, the LSU's, the Alabamas, Ohio State. I think they go to these like Exos places and they go to, wherever they go, and they coach them how to run these drills. And I think that's probably what the problem is with him. He just hasn't been at one of these major centers and probably hasn't had the chance to do that. Jared Wilson, I thought his athleticism just jumped off the screen. Excellent change of direction. Made it look easy during the wave. Quick accelerator in space. Pass rush drop was a bit too shallow like Clay Webb's, but again, it doesn't matter. He's a center.
I like Wilson.
I just thought he looked great. Now, he is very softly spoken, Robbie. He's a bit of a gentle giant. And part of me does want Jason Kelsey rather than Oluwole Timmy at center. Right. But beggars cannot be choosers in that sense. So sorry, Big Mike, I did not see your super chat about Wilson. He says, do you think a guy like Wilson will be trusted as a starting center as a rookie? Any idea what his own blocking grade was? Yes, I am desperate for a good center. I can get his own blocking grade for you in a second. it was good. It was very good. So, can he start as a rookie? Robbie, I'm skeptical that he can start as a rookie. I think if you were going to take him, his zone blocking grade was a 78.9. So it's not where like Membu was 87.5, Clay Webb 84.9, Zabel 84.8. It's like a notch below that, but it's still pretty good. I don't know whether he can trust him to start. I suppose it depends who's next to him. If he has two experienced guards next to him, then possibly. But if you played Wilson, a young, inexperienced guard, and Christian Haynes next to him, I'd worry about that, Robbie. I think you need a blend. You can carry like a first-year starter on your line as long as that grizzled veteran's there as well. And that's what the Seahawks have a dearth of. They don't have any grizzled veterans on their offensive line. And Charles Cross is not a grizzled veteran.
No.
And Abe could have been, but he's just not played enough football to achieve grizzled veteran status at this point. So I'm not sure I would start him. I think the ideal for Jared Wilson was that he still lasts to like the third round or something, and then you take him and you play him behind a Ryan Kelly, and then in a year you kick him into the starting lineup. But I don't know if he's going to last to 82, and that might be a pick that you want to earmark for the quarterback. So we will see. I've got to put something to you there, Robbie, after we've done all this O-line stuff, if you don't mind, about the quarterbacks.
Love it. Go for it.
Okay, I said there was one more player. There's two. Gray Zabel isn't the athlete that Jared Wilson is, but he gets around the field with ease, and his change of direction is impressive. The NFL Network pundits called him a center, but for me, that takes away a large chunk of what he's best at, getting on the front foot, reaching up to the next level, operating in space, and instead he'd have to block straight on. That's where he struggled a bit at the Senior Bowl, and he's 6'6", so I don't know why you'd play him at center. And I said he's a guard all day. Got out of his deep pull brilliantly. Fantastic size, looks the part. Pass rush drops were not quite as clean as some of the others, but he got the job done. Had a superb mirror drill, getting good lateral range and changing direction easily. Superb screen drill to finish. He had an excellent field session, I put. So, people are saying in the comments again, Jen, thanks for reminding me, Jalen Sundell played with Zabel at North Dakota State. So if you wanted to sign Ryan Kelly, Robbie, develop Jalen Sundell, that's a transition, isn't it? And you plonk Zabel in. You give him a year next to Ryan Kelly, and then you put his mate there next to him. I think we should be running the Seahawks, mate. We need to sort this out. Imagine the statue that they would build. What pose would you do in your statue after you'd fixed the offensive line, Robbie? I think I'd be like, and that's me pointing off into the distance, admiring someone's zone blocking. That's me admiring a screen drill.
I do something stupid like the dab, or I do like a shooting the arrow.
That's a 15-yard penalty, Robbie.
Listen, I'm all here for it.
You're not allowed bows and arrows these days in the No Fun League. Right, the final offensive lineman, Armand Membu. Mm-hmm. I thought he's quite barrel-chested. Did you notice this?
I didn't know. But I know what you mean when you say that.
He's like a thin guy who's put like a pillow up his jersey. Like that's what he looked like. Like he's not got a prototypical frame. Like either at tackle, well, certainly not for a tackle. He's not got a long body. And I don't think he can stay at tackle with that frame. Not in the NFL. Like Missouri's a little different than the NFL. So I think he has to kick inside. But I prefer the body of Zabel to the body of Membu, purely in terms of the aesthetics, in terms of who are you going to take to play in your offensive line. But undoubtedly an excellent athlete. Pass rush set and drops were superb. Good depth on the drop and an easy transition. We didn't see a lot of his drills thanks to the NFL Network, but obviously testing through the roof. And before you jumped on, Robbie, I said he's probably going to go 10, 11, 13, 14, 16. Not be there at 18. I'd be surprised if he's there at 18. But he's got his good zone blocking grade, so if he was, fair enough. The good news there, Robbie, we have got some offensive linemen that we've been able to talk about for 50 minutes, and they should be able to find some options there. Nick says, Rob, thank you so much for staying up late and giving us this excellent analysis. I can't get Riley Leonard out of my head. He is a competitor. He is a dual threat QB. Pick 82 seems perfect for him. I tend to agree, Nick. I think it's a really good pick for him. I really like what he did yesterday. I went back and watched it again because I'm a sad act, and went and watched all of the quarterbacks. And before I went to bed, because the NFL Network very kindly put all of the workouts, the quarterbacks on like a big hour, 10-minute video. And I thought it looked really good. I thought he and Shook and I went back and watched Ewers. I thought Ewers looked good. I thought Dart looked really good. I think Will Howard, my initial thought was of a bit of disappointment, Will Howard. And then I watched it again and I thought, do you know what? I'm not that bothered. Like, I think there was a lot of good there and just a few things that were wrong. But there was one thing I noticed, Robbie. There was one of the routes that they were running and the receivers they didn't run to the sideline and they had to put a cone out halfway through it. And the quarterbacks kept throwing it incomplete because the receivers were not running to the bloody spot they were supposed to go to. And people were going, oh, that was a wayward throw. And I even wrote down, missed that throw. And they weren't missing the throws. It was the receivers who didn't run the correct routes. So I actually went back and watched it again and took some of the negatives away from all of those quarterbacks. Nobody looks like Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes or Justin Herbert. But, Robbie, there are some quarterbacks in this draft. There really are. And I think Leonard at 82 would be great value. I'm not sure he's going to be there, And here's the point I wanted to put to you. I was listening to some things. Todd McShay, Tony Pauline. Tony suggested that Ewers could go late first round today. I don't buy that. But I think Ewers could go early second round. I think teams who need a quarterback are going to be more inclined to take a chance on this guy than the internet is prepared to. I think Tyler Shook could go in that range. I think Jackson Dart will go in that range. Todd McShay said Will Howard is adored by some teams, that they rate him very highly. And Ian Rappaport just threw out during the combine, could he go in the first round? And I don't think that's going to happen either. But could he go in the top 45, top 50, 50? I think we could see a run on quarterbacks in round 2, Robbie. And if those guys go, Riley Leonard ain't going to be hanging around. He'll be the next one gone. I think we might see a day 2 rush on the quarterback position. What do you think?
I think quarterbacks always get drafted higher than they should. People reach for quarterbacks to take a chance, and I think some of these names could go in the first round. His name's going to slip my mind, but the guy everyone was talking about going first or second pick 2 or 3 years ago ended up in Tennessee. What is his name? Help me out here.
Say that again.
The guy who was drafted by Tennessee in like the 4th round, everyone was talking about him going first or second. Like
Malik Willis?
No. Yeah.
He went in the 3rd round, yeah.
Yeah. I think like these players are way better than him. And as far as intangibles, better mechanics, I mean, just everything about him is better. And I think like some of these players can go a lot higher. People are going to predict quarterbacks to go in the first round, but I actually think some of these may go in the first round. Like I struggle to see Quinn Ewers not making it in the first round just because of all the things that he's been able to do. Like, look what he's done for Texas. It's really hard to remember. It's easy to forget, I should say, how bad Texas was, right? And like and Quinn Ewers has done a great job, playing for them. And the injuries are unfortunate, but he's done a great job there. I struggle with the Riley Leonard thing, and this just because I saw him live in person. And that one game against Stanford, the ball just died on him. He could not throw it past 40 yards, and it was hard to watch. And so, but going back and watching him throw yesterday, because I went back last night and watched him throw because I missed it, and it looked effortless. It looked easy. And if he has, and I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again, if he has the same kind of like trajectory as someone like Lamar Jackson or even a Jalen Hurts, who like people said didn't have the best passing rating or whatever, I could see it happening. I don't know. I still struggle with this time of year because there's just so much smoke, and I just don't know what's real and what's not.
Do you know what the interesting thing is with this class is I think the first round could be really unpredictable because you've got like an established group of players who are going to go early. But of those players, JD Barron, Jalen Walker, Jahad Campbell, they're players that I don't think would go as I think they'd probably be like picks in the 20s or 30s in other years. But teams are going to take them because they're the best that this class has to offer. And they'll take them and they'll be content with it. But I think you're going to have a really unsatisfying first round. And then once those players have gone and those teams have just said, oh, it is what it is, we'll take them. You are going to have, and it probably starts at around 18 where the Seahawks pick. You are going to have a bunch of teams where the grades, and people, this is not breaking news for anybody. There are going to be a bunch of teams who have grades on players that are the same from like 17 to 50. And because of that, there's going to be so many unpredictable scenarios where you go, oh, crap, like Tyler Shook has suddenly gone in the late first or the early second. Didn't see that coming. But it's because the teams have just gone, well, we've got the same grade on him that we've got on these three players at different positions, but he's a freaking quarterback, so we're going to take him. Quinn Ewers. Like people will go, do you know what? We understand all of the misgivings of Quinn Ewers, but then here's 15 other players that we've got the same grade on. And now let's run through all the misgivings that we've got with them. Now, the people criticize and analyze the quarterbacks in a different way that they would maybe analyze a receiver or a tight end or even an offensive lineman. We don't pick up on the issues. Like how many times, there is a good way of putting it. How many times, Robbie, have you logged onto Twitter? And I don't know how often you're on there, but if you logged on and seen someone criticizing Quinn Ewers, because I'm on Twitter all the time with my job, and I obviously follow a lot of NFL people and draft people, and it was relentless criticism of Quinn Ewers throughout the college football season, rightly or wrongly. I never saw any criticism of Will Campbell during the season unless I sought it out. Like I went on the LSU forums and they were talking about how badly he was playing. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about how badly Will Campbell played. Everybody talks how badly Quinn Ewers played. So you see my point is that people obsess and analyze the quarterbacks and judge them in a way that they don't judge other positions. And teams are going to look at these players and go, my grade on Ewers is the same as this completely flawed player at cornerback. Who are you going to take if you need a quarterback? You're going to take a quarterback, aren't you? If the grades are the same, you're going to take that chance. And also, when you talk about any time out of the first round for the players like Dart, Ewers, Shook, Howard, Leonard, whoever you want to put in there, Robbie, Shador. The minute that you get out the first round, the pressure for those players to be the answer drops dramatically. If you take a quarterback 10th overall, 1st overall, 18th overall, they have to be the answer. Have to be. If you take them at 40, it's a shot to nothing. It's a, oh, well, that didn't work. Never mind. Move on.
I mean, it's yeah. If you take a quarterback in the first round, right, you're more committing to that player no matter what. Second on, you kind of like can justify it a little bit more.
Do you know a good example of that is? Can you remember Christian Hackenberg?
Yeah.
Who was when he was at Penn State and everybody was like, he's the next big thing when he was recruited and he was crap. And the Jets still took him in the second round. And nobody remembers. I mean, of all the bad picks from the Jets over the years, that's not one that ever gets talked about. Because it's a second round pick at quarterback. If they took him 15th overall, we'd never shut up about it. If you take a chance on a second round quarterback, you're just hoping to develop this guy. It's not necessarily going to be the answer. Look at the Titans. They took Will Levis at the top of round 2. They're going to move on. No one's going to, they've already fired the GM, but that wasn't because he took Will Levis in round 2. No one is going to sort of think twice if they never play Will Levis ever again, because he wasn't a top 10 pick or a top first round, top 32 pick. And that's the thing. So I think we could see a run on quarterbacks. If that is going to happen, and if the Seahawks anticipate it happens, Robbie, what do you do if you want to take one? And I think the Seahawks probably do, because you might get to a point where 18 is too high, 50 is too low. Do you just have to let the board dictate whether you get one in that instance? Do you have to say, if the guy we like is there at 50, we'll take them? If he isn't, it is what it is. And do you even want to take one at 50? Because I've just pitched a brilliant idea to take Gray Zabel and take Ratledge.
Right. Yeah. Well, it depends on if the guy you really like falls into a range that you feel comfortable trading up for, and what the trade capital is, and if you're sold on a guy, what did we say a couple years? Pay the iron price to go get the guy that you want. I don't
Pay the
think
iron price.
I don't know if that guy is if he's in this draft, but if there's somebody that they're sold on and they're like, we need to go get this guy, then do it. But they also said the same thing about Russ. They really liked Russ, and they let the board fall. They could have tried to trade ahead of the team that took a punter instead. I can't remember. Was it Tennessee? Maybe?
Jacksonville.
Or Jacksonville, and they needed a quarterback, but they took the punter, and they risked it then. Maybe they do the same thing this time.
That's a great point. They probably will just let the board come to them, won't they? But
sometimes that's the best move, though. Really, just let the board play out.
And I'm not suggesting that these players are absolutely nailed on. They're Schneider players, obviously, because you look at someone like Drew Aller and you think, and Drake May, and you think, yeah, they look like Schneider players. But I think it's the combination of a number of factors, Robbie. They're not weak-armed players. They're not massive cannon players either, but there is just something about Ewers and Howard and Leonard and Shook. I'm turning on Shook because I thought his performance was good yesterday. I think the tape matched his combine in that he is good. Oh, that was a bit bad. Oh, it's good again. It's bad again. So that's part of it. But listening to him speak, my word, he's so impressive, Robbie. It's very easy to imagine the Seahawks taking a player like that. He's so competitive and mature and driven. And the way he was talking, go and watch the Todd McShay interview, everybody, please. It had, I think, 2,000 views, Robbie. I said, what's going on here? Like the amount of crap that people watch some utter garbage on here. Some of it's about the Seahawks. Sometimes it does feel like if you go, this is the most amazing thing ever in a title, that people will watch it. And those kind of videos get 50,000 views. And then you've got a brilliant Todd McShay interview with Tyler Shook, and it's got like 2,000 views. Go on, check it out. And if Todd wants to repay the favor by saying, check out this channel, then that'd be great. I'm joking. But it's a really good interview. And I just think I can easily imagine them liking players like that, Robbie. And if you think now's the chance, this is your chance to take one. You've got a good chunk of players who could go in round two. I don't know if you can wait until 82 and hope that one's there. I suppose the other possibility is they trade up. They trade up from 82 and they go and be aggressive. But like you said, they didn't do that with Russ, and they loved Russ, and they didn't do that.
I guess a lot comes down what happens to Geno as well, right?
I think they're going to announce a contract in the next 72 hours.
So if that's the case, then they know they don't have to force their hand again. But I think they do need someone in the chamber. But I could see a scenario where they're like, well, we got Sam and Geno again for one more year. We'll see what happens next year.
And I'm really torn on it because I really like the idea of sorting the offensive line out.
Yeah.
And as much as I like the quarterback class, there's nobody I'm not looking at any of these guys and going, they're going to win the next Super Bowl in Seattle for sure. So I kind of just want to fix the freaking line and get that sorted. Oh, but if they come out of this draft and then let's say that Ewers ends up with the Rams and Shook to the 49ers and they don't pay Purdy, and Leonard goes, I don't know, somewhere else in the NFC that can make him good, and Howard, it'll be frustrating, Robbie, if those players work out and in 12 months we're scrambling around thinking, and Garrett Nussmeier's going to go too early and Drew Aller's going to go too early. What are they going to do? And Arch Manning and all this stuff. It would be irritating. But you can't have everything, and I suppose that's the one thing of any potential trade for DK Metcalf. Now, I think Corbin Smith, who was the one who created Shitstorm 2025 the other day by tweeting about it, has now rode back on that, Robbie, and has said, has said something tonight. I saw it in the chat saying that the Seahawks don't, like the Bills and the Chiefs are sniffing around as well as the Packers or something, but the Seahawks don't want to deal him. So, well, what was the whole point of spending a whole day saying that the Seahawks were open to it and the Packers thought they had a deal in the framework to get a deal done and they could get it done and all of that? If they don't, if now the new report is they're not, you know, it's like, come on, man, this is really inconsistent stuff. This and a bit, but. Well, let me just throw it to you, Robbie. Let's just go there. If you could trade DK Metcalf for a pick in the 20s, let's say, Packers, Bills, and you take Zabel 18, quarterback in the 20s to make sure you get your guy, take Rutledge at 50. But you've not got DK Metcalf anymore.
Right.
What would you think?
I mean, you're showing up the offensive line. I feel like wide receivers tend to be a little easier to find.
Some good receivers in this draft.
There are good receivers in this draft. I think they tend to be a little bit easier to find than quality guards, tackles, centers. If you can do it, I hate to say it, but I think I'd say, yeah, go for it.
Wow. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Because replacing DK will not be easy.
No.
And whatever people think of DK Metcalf, you won't. I do think we won't really appreciate the impact that he has until he has gone. And the good receivers that I like, I'd probably want to take at 50 rather than round 3. And also, can you take 4 offensive players with your first 4 picks? Maybe you can. Maybe you can. Yeah, you could do that if you didn't address O-line in the free agency and address the defense. So if you went and got a safety, there's some good safeties in there. If you've got a cornerback, a safety, a defensive lineman, Jaron Reed maybe come back or something, pass rusher in free agency, you could probably do it. But there's a lot to get done. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting little chat about the quarterbacks there. And there is some sort of buzz about what could happen and players going a bit earlier. So I think I'm going to do a mock draft tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to publish it tomorrow. I'll publish it on Tuesday. We'll see. But the quarterbacks will go earlier than I've been mocking them. Cisco, big thank you to Cisco, who's a good supporter of the channel. Thanks for all the amazing coverage. The off-season wouldn't be as fun if you guys weren't doing your thing. As of today, if Las Vegas offered you 37, 68, and 73 for 18 and 82, would you do it? Is more stock in round 2 and round 3 more desirable? What do you reckon, Robbie? Would you give up 18 for 30? So you're going to drop down 19 spots here.
That's a big jump, yeah.
You get 68, which is the top of round 3.
Right.
And you jump up 9 spots in round 3 as well. So you get 1 extra third. I think that's too far to drop for just 1 third round pick. I would want to go that far. I would want
more.
I'd probably want maybe even a first rounder next year.
Yeah. You threw in a first rounder next year and you offer me that trade, I think I'd say yeah.
Or maybe just something like a second next year and you don't give up 82. Or maybe just forget next year. I mean, let me put that to you, Robert. What if it was just 37, 68, and 73? Forget you. So you would essentially drop down 19 spots, and for the benefit of doing that, you acquire 2 extra third round picks in this draft. I think I'd go.
I was gonna say I'd take that. If we get to keep 82 and we just get rid of 18, I think I would do that.
So you'd pick 3 times in the third in a good third round.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to move up, you've got the ammunition to do it.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, this is where I think the money's made in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round this year in the draft. Holding on to 18, dependent on who falls there, I don't know if it's worth it. I think I would take that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Julian's just posted this. He says, back on Tyler Booker, just seen a short reminder that Orlando Brown had the worst combine ever, but was had a top career and was taken by the Ravens. Indeed. So testing matters until it doesn't. And there are plenty of players out there that have not tested well. And all I would say is, and it's the weirdest thing, I didn't expect it. I was fully anticipating being Really disappointed by Tyler Booker today. I thought his on-field drills completely were unexpected from what we saw with his testing. German says, hello, Rob and Robbie. Greetings from Argentina. Greetings. Messi the GOAT, of course, he says, because, of course, everybody in Argentina has to let you know that Lionel Messi is from Argentina. Do you think Ewers could reach Gino's level in the next 2 years? I think so, but I would like to know your opinion. Excellent work as always, Rob. Keep it up.
I do.
I think Quinn Ewers is... I think there are attractive traits. I think there are interesting things with Ewers. I think there's definitely natural talent there, Robbie. He's just a difficult player to project. I don't know. It's really hard for me to sit here and go, I see Quinn Ewers. I'm not saying that Geno Smith is this, by the way. I see Quinn Ewers being an elite or even a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I don't rule it out. I think he's interesting. I think in the right system, he could be a Brock Purdy type player, maybe different, not as mobile, maybe a bit better with his arm. But I'm not sure whether I like him. I'm not sure how much I can project him though. And maybe that's what we have to do more of, Robbie. Maybe it's more a case of projecting what you see them being. Like if you run through it, of the quarterbacks, of these quarterbacks, Dart, Ewers, Shook, Leonard, Howard, how many of them can you imagine them being a top 10 quarterback at the next level?
Maybe 2.
Which ones?
I would say Ewers and Howard.
It's really hard.
I mean, it's just I mean, obviously it's just pure speculation
Sure.
and guessing on my part. It would be so hard to like predict, but I mean, again, I guess I could see Riley Leonard if he can dial it in, like all the things that I think he would need to do, then he has the potential. I mean, I think they all have the potential. Every player you said has the potential. Do I think they will? No, I don't. And the scheme, whoever it is, all those things play into it.
I mean, the thing is, I don't really see Michael Penix Jr. being a top 10 player at quarterback in the NFL, and yet he went in the top 10. And then I don't see JJ McCarthy being a top 10 quarterback, and he went in the top 15.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Bo Nix will ever be a top 10 quarterback. I know people say he had a great rookie year. I think he had a good rookie year for who he is, and I think he showed real improvement by the end of the year. But Sean Payton's definitely helped him there, and now the teams have got tape on him for a year. So I'm not sure he's ever going to be a top 10 quarterback. So it's hard. I suppose maybe a better question might be, can you see any of them being Jalen Hurts? Can you see any of them who are maybe not, no one is ever going to go and say Jalen Hurts is an unbelievable top 10 quarterback, but Jalen Hurts has been to 2 Super Bowls. And that's maybe the better way of looking at it. And when I think of it that way, I can imagine Jackson Dart doing that. I can imagine Will Howard doing that. I think I can imagine Ryan Leonard doing that. I think I can imagine maybe Quinn Ewers doing that and Shook. But it's whether or not they put the team around them. Obviously, Hurts got a great team around him. And maybe with all 5 of them, I can think of that in an Eagles type situation. And that's the kind of situation you've got to get until the next legendary quarterback pops along and you can go and take him. So German has got in touch again. He says, by the way, I hate Jackson Dart's interviews. He seems more worried about his hair and clothes than anything else. Couldn't he stop chewing gum? Despicable. Gives me Zach Wilson vibes. I don't think John Schneider likes it. He was aggressively chewing gum during his interview on the NFL Network that they showed today, which was recorded last night. I can't say that I would not draft a quarterback based on gum chewing, but at the same time, I kind of understand where he's coming from, Robbie, with that. Like the Dart interview with Pro Football Talk, I thought was decent. I thought the one with CBS was a bit, it was a bit Zach Wilson-y. And I thought that one, when the woman was asking him about his drip, I mean, my response to that is I know what she means by that, but my response still would have been, what's a drip? Because I just don't, I can't speak in those terms, Robbie.
Yeah.
I'm a man of 40.
Well, it's funny that he brings the gum chewing because I actually noticed it at the stadium as well when I was watching the quarterbacks throw. Like there was like 3 or 4 of them that just had gum in while they were like getting ready to throw, and they were just aggressively just.
Do you know who else was chewing gum?
Danny,
Praise table.
oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
think that. I thought, how can he chew gum while he's running around? Like the
Yeah.
quarterback's just throwing the thing. Like he was running around.
Yeah.
He had fluorescent yellow gum. It's like he borrowed it from Pete Carroll. Maybe he'd met with Pete Carroll that day. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe Pete's passing out the gum.
Listen. I think it's the hardest thing to ever do. That's why I always kind of want to tell people to F off when they bring up things like Will Levis, because, well, one, CJ Stroud was QB1 on my horizontal board, and it's all documented. And he's had a pretty decent career so far. And it's the hardest thing to project, Robbie. It's the hardest thing to say this quarterback's going to be the next great NFL quarterback. And you can't even have that conviction about it. And with someone like Joe Burrow, who had an unbelievable, perfect final season at LSU, you couldn't even then you were like, yeah, but he had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson to throw to. Yeah, but he had like everything around him. Yeah, has he got like the big arm? What's his upside? What's his ceiling? Why was he like back up at Ohio State? And then why was he like a 5th rounder going into this draft, 6th rounder, and now he's the 1st overall pick? And he's ended up being a legendary player for the Bengals. Took him to a Super Bowl. It's the hardest thing to project, to find the next great quarterback. And if it was that easy, everyone would have a great quarterback. It's so hard. And we'll just finish with this, Robbie, because I've kept you long enough. But I do appreciate everybody who's watching. I mean, the numbers are fantastic for us today. I trust John Schneider at the quarterback position. I know that he's had some whiffs. Sam Howell wasn't a great addition. Drew Lock was poor. Charlie Whitehurst was dreadful. Tavares Jackson wasn't very good. I think the fact that he drafted Russell Wilson, the best quarterback this franchise ever had, in round 3, and the fact that he and I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this, clearly had interest in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and made that clear before they became Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, by the way. That wasn't a hindsight thing. I do trust him, Robbie. Do you trust him on quarterbacks?
I do. Yeah. I think we've talked about it a little bit in the past, but I think I do. I think if he has a guy that he is dead set on, I trust his opinion on that.
Anyway, thank you to everybody who has sent a super chat in, and thank you to Robbie for his time, both today and yesterday. Really appreciate that, Robbie, and I hope we get a chance to speak soon. Free agency is only like 8 days away, you know.
That's right.
We're going to have some answers to some of these questions very, very soon. I am now going to put a tweet out saying, would Seahawks fans be interested in a Gray Zabel and Tate Ratledge double dip in the first 2 rounds, and see what the reaction is to that. And I'm going to write up my final article, which will have the O-line notes that I've been talking about today, some data from the O-lineman, and some final thoughts on the combine. So SeahawksDraftBlog.com, go and check that out, please, if you wouldn't mind. Big week coming up, new horizontal board, new mock draft, lots and lots of stuff going on SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Do me a favor, if you have enjoyed the 4 days of streams and articles and endless hours of work, and in fact, I've taken 4 days off work, 3.5, to do all this stuff. If you could do me the biggest favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would be much appreciated. Let's get those subs up to 10,000. Nothing happens at 10,000. You know, no one doesn't come around with a suitcase full of gold for me at 10,000 subscribers. I just want to have 10,000 subscribers, and it's just a nice round number. So let's get it up there. So if you haven't subscribed, do it, and you'll keep up with the content like this. If you could like the video, I'd really appreciate that. If you could leave a comment so more people, the more likes and comments we get, the more people will have eyes on the video. So please, just even if you just put Go Hawks or anything that you want, you know, thought on the combine would be even better. Just go and do that for me. It would be much appreciated. Once again, big thank you to the one and only Robbie Williams. Thank you to all of you who've watched live. Back again soon with another video and another live stream. But enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time.